This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. As always on a Monday night, so happy that you're with us on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Sports Network as we get set to go road racing for the only time this season, as we welcome you into the LSR TV booth. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, and Justin Prince upstairs with you this evening. Our director is Randy Janet. He's twisted and tweaking the dials and bringing us to you. And we come off of an exciting finish, Justin, and a little bit of deja vu last time out at Homestead Miami Speedway, where Andrew Ferdinand took home his second straight Winter Series win that puts him at the top of the championship standings as we come into round 4.
Yeah, extended his points lead as well, up to 14 total points entering today's road course racing action. And it's going to be tough to try and beat him. This is one of his strong suits, if you remember back to the RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series. But the races, he battles hard on these road courses and is not afraid to mix up the strategy. He is one of the fastest drivers today and could be a threat here this evening.
And for Mid-Ohio to be the road course on this 2020 campaign, it was essentially a driver committee. Drivers said that this is the track that they wanted to see. So we get set to go racing this afternoon in the iRacing Sim for 50 laps at Mid-Ohio. First time in quite some time we've seen this track used in real sim racing competition. So not only is the fact that it is a road course going to be a very critical thing as you take a look at the live qualifying times, as a couple of the drivers are still out there trying to put one more down or maybe just get in some extra laps for practice-wise. We have to remind you about how the road course procedure works here in RSR competition, Justin. There are no full course cautions. So when we drop the green flag, you're going to see 50 laps of action all the way through. The best car coupled with the best strategy certainly has a very good opportunity to win this race. That is, if they could keep it mistake-free every single trip around this 13-turn road course.
And you can see with Joshua Baird how difficult it's going to be today. The track is hot, 118 degrees Fahrenheit here in qualifying, 78 degrees in the air temp. It's also a tough track to put the power down. Lots of chances to over-rotate the car as it goes up to the gears and swing it off of the grass. Many times drivers did that in practice. Or locked up the brakes just like that and went off into the sand traps. And don't forget, this is a new tire model for the first time this season. To the V7 tire model, the Xfinity cars went with the conclusion of the Pro Series. And that means a couple things, Evan. Tire heating going to be very crucial for these drivers coming out of the pits and at the start of the race, as well as trying to manage their tires. They wear much more considerably compared to the previous version.
It is a whole new thing, and it has been a little bit of a slow rollout on the service as select vehicles have gotten this newest tire model in order. But of course, now these NASCAR Xfinity Series cars do have them, and these drivers have had about a week to try to get acclimated with them. It is certainly going to be a different feel once we get back on an oval. We'll be back there next week on the 30th from Iowa Speedway. It'll be the first time seeing these tires on an oval. But you are certainly right at a racetrack like this where you can make so many mistakes, overcook corners, slide and heat those tires up. Managing them without the assistance of almost guaranteed caution periods at some point is going to be very difficult.
It's going to be extremely difficult. In fact, some drivers have been working all week. It takes a lot of adjusting, potentially, for some of these drivers. It took them as much as a whole week, in fact, to just tune their setups and tune their driving abilities to the new tires as it became more of a dynamic object. Tonight's race could be an interesting one.
Well, let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid. And it is your points leader and two-time back-to-back winner, Andrew Ferdinand, on a pole position. He'll be joined by the best car in practice, Kyle Kamer, on the outside of the front row in second. Rhett McBride and Scott McClendon to be the duo on row 2. They'll be third and fourth on the grid. And Daniel Eberhardt's got a top 5 car as well.
Coterdale in the 7 machine starts in P number 6 right in front of Joshua Baird, who we've seen off in the grass on his second lap. Thomas George starts in P number 8 in the Series XM machine. Bobby Krug starts in 9th with Ross Cato rounding out your top 10.
Kyle Brooks will start at 11th spot. His lap time just under 3 seconds off the very best. You can see the intervals spread out on this road course, and Todd Novosad will be P12. Brian Chambliss rolling from 13th position with Jared Bogard in 14th, and Sean Kalis through P15.
Rest of the drivers behind Steve Cunningham on provisionals. They start in 17th. Michael Moser in 17th, Steve Sobra in 18th, with Trevin Vanderama in 19th. Steve Durham and Andres Nunez round out the drivers in the provisional spots this evening, and it's going to be a wild run into turn number 1 here, Evan, especially on the cold tires. It should be a crazy start to this 50-lapper.
We're going racing for 50 laps around this 2.25-mile road course, which means just a little bit over 112 miles of racing will take place this evening as the field now rolls off and away behind that iRacing safety car. Again, no full course cautions, so you're going to have to make this thing go the distance. And we're happy that you're joining us for some road racing action on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network, where we say, let's go racing at Mid-Ohio. Green flag in the air. We're off to turn 1 for the first time.
And the top 6 or 8 actually got a very good start to this one. And Rhett McBride already feeling confident. So is McClendon. McClendon, one of the fastest drivers in practice, while others are off in the grass.
Yeah, they're drivers. You can see one car way off to the outside, down at what was turn number 1, now down at this end of the racetrack, turn 2. The keyhole is going to bring you down to this big back straightaway. Turn 3 is a kink. You're going to take this at speed at about 150 miles an hour. You're going to make sure the car stays underneath you as more cars find themselves off and in the sand trap. But as your race leaders hit turn 4 for the first time, it is still Ferdinand in front, and Kamer has maintained second. Those leaders got such a good jump because of when the pace car pulled off, essentially 2 corners ahead of the start-finish straight. That's when the green came out. That's when Ferdinand got off and away. And you can see a couple of battles top 10 as a little bit of separation happens around that 34 in Novosad.
Yeah, they got an absolutely good launch, that top 8, but should note one of the drivers in that grouping, the 5 of Rhett McBride. You see him in the middle of your screen. He went off in the sand trap in the keyhole. That dropped him all the way from the top 3, just trying to ride the outside, to where you see him up in your screen for P number 9. A bad start this time because that mistake lost him 8 seconds and put him in the second group.
He started this race in the 3rd spot, and you'll see him go through the final set of corners behind number 12, Ross Cato. So he drops from 3rd position down to 9th in just lap number 1. Again, because there aren't going to be restarts and multiple opportunities at this, it is consistency and key. And what a big bobble from behind. You saw, I think that was Eberhardt, who was all kinds of out of control. Might have been Trudell. One of those cars, tail end top 5, was way out of it at a turn 1. And again, now they'll hit this back straightaway section. They'll take this corner at speed, one of the trickier ones to make sure the back end stays underneath you. High speeds, high braking zone to this back half of the racetrack that starts right here with turn 4, 5, and then the S's, 6, 7, 8, 9, all stacked up together. The rhythm section of the racetrack down at this end.
Yeah, and this is where Andrew Freenosh shows his ability on the road course. Last time he gained a full car length. This time he locks up the right front tire. But you see that difference in the racing line. He's able to get more towards the bottom. That's what he's aiming for in that section out of the S's compared to where Kyle Kamer's trying to ride the higher line. The difference in speed can be pretty dramatic if you can hit that group at the right point to set you up down for Thunder Valley all the way towards the carousel.
And some of these drivers put in tons of practice, not only in the week leading up to this. We mentioned that they're trying to get acclimated with that new tire model on the iRacing service, but as well, just to figure out this racetrack. It's been quite some time since we've seen a Mid-Ohio race here on LSR TV. So, for these RSR drivers trying to figure this place back out, the usual suspects, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, not all that different, but this racetrack does have a lot of good elevation changes, very little if no runoffs at all in the corners, so you have to be very careful. And you can see this lead 3-car breakaway. The Freenosh, Kamer, McClendon trio, they're pulling away for the rest of the pack, where you'll find that 9 and George and the 50 to Bobby Krug. These drivers already looking at 7 or so seconds off for the race leaders, who have really separated themselves early in this one.
Yeah, and right now, these drivers you see up on your screen are just trying to at least set a rhythm. And Rhett McBride's got some problems at this point. Locked up the brakes this time, heading towards China Beach nearly. And he is sideways off the corners here. He's not comfortable with the tires. And one of the main things with this new model, Evan, if you overcook them or go sideways like this, you will feel the difference dramatically. Sometimes at the short tracks, for example, Evan, where many of these drivers were coming from, they would lose a full 10th if they spun just sideways for one corner.
He'll rock it down Thunder Alley, take the left into turn 11. They'll then find the carousel here, turn 12, and then the final left-hand kink to straighten you back out to the front straightaway right here, turn number 13. And then it is again that run down to tricky turn 1. Those onboard shots with McBride showing you that Bobby Krug and Thomas George have been fighting for a position in front of him. That would be for 6th and 7th position. They're one of the more tighter duos on the racetrack right now. You got nothing changing in front of them. So curious how George is going to handle this pressure, because McBride is closed back in on him as well. It's a 3-car group for P6, 7, and 8.
They're actually losing 2 seconds a lap at the moment compared to the race leaders. But one of the main things when it comes to the straightaway, you can get a draft, get yourself built up speed, and if you're able to get brave enough, send it up the inside. This time, however, George stays up high. Krug doesn't even risk it, electing to stay behind as again McBride locks up the tires.
And he could see also on some of those shots as the 9-car now goes wide. Krug wants to look to the inside. The problem is, well, that was the outside in the next quarter, so he wasn't able to set it up. And a 9 machine does stay in front. I mean, I even saw Freenosh through some of the quarters earlier on where that right front tire was not rotating. It was locked up through the quarter. That is going to be the thing that is critical for these drivers to manage as this race goes on. We talked a little bit before we went on the air, Justin, about what we thought the strategy would be. And based on, some of the longer runs from drivers in practice, you could go 25 laps, make it one stopper, and go the distance. But are these new tires going to allow you to make that long of a run at a race? As we see Krug down to the inside, he'll challenge for P6 in the run to turn number 1, and not much of a counter strike from the 9. Give it to Krug as he's now gained 3 spots from the start.
I think he knew Krug was getting faster, and George nearly getting contact behind from McBride. Wouldn't be surprised if George let the 5 go, knowing how hard he has been charging. But this is slowly allowing this next group of drivers to reel themselves in. Brooks already making a move this lap on Ross Cato, for example. This is about to become a potentially 4-car scrap for position, as George just let by his teammate McBride.
Yeah, McBride is able to get on through. Not much of a challenge there from the 9, so you can see that all chrome number 5 car take that spot away. And we'll see what happens now with this other pack as 5 kind of gets integrated into it. Big slide that time out of what was turn 5. He got real kinds of out of shape, and now he's got more company on him. George, obviously the 9 car. Then it would be Gael Brooks, Ross Cato, Joshua Baird. I mean, a whole stack of cars, a slew of cars here in the middle of the pack. Happy to tell you, by the way, 20 cars started this race. Only Todd Novosad is done already. The 34 had a self-spin out of 1 earlier. His night is over.
And we just had Daniel Eberhardt go sideways through the carousel and lose a ton of time. He was at the back end of the lead group. He went off into the grass, overran a sand trap, and now he is somewhere around 10 seconds back of the race lead, all while going out of control on his own. He's lost touch of this battle for third position since then because of that. And you can tell how much the confidence on these tires is coming in and how much confidence around the course is coming in. Even the battle for third has fallen off a full second to the top two.
Well, we talked with these drivers after the race last week at Homestead about what they would, look forward to this Mid-Ohio race. And, a lot of the drivers said, look out for Kyle Kamer. Well, of course, Kyle had a good qualifying effort, started this race in second position. He was the best car in practice, but he's second fiddle right now to Freenaj at the very front of the field. Scott McClendon was also very good. That's the fight you're watching. McClendon and Trudell for third and fourth at the racetrack. They've fallen to about 3 seconds off of the race lead, but they're over 6 seconds ahead of P5 on back. So they're kind of in this middle bubble where Freenaj and Kamer are probably the challengers for the race win, and McClendon and Trudell then that next class of drivers, as they're pretty step and set with each other. Here's the fight for the race lead. Kamer lost a tenth that last time. Freenaj putting down a 127.1 to 127.2 for Kamer, so that difference sits at about 9/10.
Yeah, and you can definitely not sleep on Kamer, absolutely. When you think back to this past summer on the road courses, he was consistently one of the fastest drivers. He wasn't in the lead fight, but he was normally in the third position. He's one of those drivers who can match Freenaj potentially today. It's just a matter of making sure he can keep up with the 88, maybe even out-strategize him to try and win this race, because I think he could do it. It's just a matter of keeping up with Andrew Freenaj and then trying to make a move, which at this track can, if you don't get a good rhythm, be difficult to do. Right now, the main thing that's hurting Kamer, though, is Freenaj is more comfortable off the corner exit on the throttle.
And if the 8 tries to make up for that, if his race car isn't able to make that time up as easily as the 88 does on exit, that's how you start to get into that overdriving territory. But the thing that makes road course racing so exciting is a lot of it is more so you versus the track, with other cars out there doing the same thing at the same time. Whereas at Oval, the other cars at a racetrack have a lot more of a direct impact on you. Curious if Kamer's lack of ability to out-qualify Freenaj may end up being the difference when this one's all said and done. But also hearing issues with Steve Durham. The 10 car is off the racetrack right now. He was off it in the sand trap as he lost it on his own in turn number 1, I think it was. Again, no full course yellow, so this thing is going to stay green as he finally gets that thing back on track.
Yeah, you can see this up on your screens on the LSR TV replay. Spun that thing around, and he had to try and get back on the track as the leaders were getting on by. That 43 machine that he nearly came up in front of with Sean Kalis just clipped the grass just a little bit on the run into turn 1. And that, while braking, not a good thing because, well, there's no traction on grass. He clips the grass right here, swings him around, bye-bye race car, and he's forced to try and overcorrect. Nothing you can do from that point.
He was awfully close to that inside armco barrier, and you could see Kalis to go by right there. And then he could have gone onto the racetrack a lot quicker, saw the race leaders coming, so he kind of drove through the grass a little bit to allow them to go on by. That's a concern for race leaders, always watching out for lap traffic, but literal hazards could come around any quarter, especially a windy road course like Mid-Ohio, where you may not necessarily see what's going on in front of you until you actually arrive on that scene. So you see your race leaders come by, they'll cycle out of turn 13, they complete lap number 8 of 50. In this NPHY.org 113. The 88 machine still leading the 8 in the battle for the race lead. McBride, by the way, now back up into third atop McClendon, who is McClendon still in third, I should say, but McClendon has actually pulled a little bit on Trudell. So McBride is still dropped down to P6, unable to stay up with Daniel Eberhardt, who's also been able to separate himself from the pack a little bit. So starting to see more separation throughout the field. It's a side-by-side battle nearly on the back straightaway as your race leader goes on through and Kalis pulls over to let him pull through. This time by, he'll also give Kamer the inside.
Yeah, traffic management is going to be so difficult as this race progresses. Potentially, if you reach them at the wrong spot, you can lose a lot of time. What you want as a race car driver, though, if you're lapping somebody, is essentially, it's your job to pass them. But it's also the driver in front of you's job, if they're a lap down, to get to the perfect spot to let them on go. Don't just simply ride in the optimal line and try and force the lead car to run the slower line. Try and pedal away, get yourself towards a good passing spot, and move out of the way and let them on go. It slows you both up. If you go to the wrong spot, McClendon locks it up.
Yeah, Trudell got on the inside, so much so he had those right side tires all the way up and over the curb as they took the right-hander in what was 12. But McClendon was able to get back on it now again in one. The 70 car looking to the inside, really trying to utilize those hard braking and slow corners to set him up for a pass, which would be for third position. McClendon started fourth. The runs in third right now. Trudell also in the positive, started in position 6. He is in fourth, trying to track him down, and they will also have to deal with Sean Kalis as lap traffic in a moment.
And that might be a good opportunity for McClendon if they reach him the right spot to use him as a pick. Or this is going to potentially lose them some time. This is going to get tricky. The 43 trying to ride the bottom of the chicane. Going to slow them both up.
Yeah, they're going to be forced to the outside there as they come out of the carousel or through the S's, I guess, up to 6 and now through 7. They ended up on the wrong side of that corner. It all balanced itself up when they got back into the spot, and I don't think it really disadvantaged McClendon or Trudell more so over each other, so that doesn't change things much. Still a car length and change in between them, but as they do now speed down Thunder Valley and hit these final couple of corners, let's see if that 7 will set the 22 up again like he tried last time.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to get the traction on the high side, knowing McClendon was able to get a good run last time there. Just can't get the power down to at least get side by side. It's so difficult to try and time up a pass in the carousel. You really need to get it done either on the run out of the keyhole all the way up towards China Beach, or really down the start and finish straight, or the run out of turn 1 to the keyhole. It's difficult to get it done in a chicane. Looks like he's seen that opportunity now.
He'll try to go the outside as they come through turn 2, the keyhole, and the exit here is the big thing because it is a long straightaway that includes turn 3 and then down to 4 for the hardest braking corner on the racetrack. It really looked like Trudell had the speed off of the turn, but it is not going to come to fruition. You can see with the onboard shot just too far back, and they'll slow down from a top speed of 160 and change to about 60 miles an hour as he goes for the crossover now to the inside. It'll put him on the outside, though, into 6. And as they head to the S's again, the 7's blocked out.
Yeah, again, can't get to the right spot. Maybe try the outside of the carousel once again. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that from him. Or pressurize the 22 in a mistake. Looks like a bit of a bobble.
He'll hunt on him that last lap as they did battle. They lost 2 seconds to the race leaders. There's a mistake by McClendon. Trudell's going to go to the left-hand side. Again, long way around the next corner. Can't set him up in time. And the 22 lives to tell the tale for now. But with the pressure that Trudell is able to put on consistently, multiple good looks, you got to feel like at some point it's going to give.
Yeah, he's getting to where he's a bit frustrated. You can tell it right now with how hard he's been charging these corners. He hasn't been diving it to the inside, but he's been trying to get it done on a higher line. That time, McClendon knew what was coming and actually took an earlier arc to try and play a bit more defensive, knowing Trudell's trying to send it hard. The thing is, though, the more he does that, the more he risks burning up the front tires and losing grip of the 22 by the end of the run.
Yeah, he needs to ask himself, what he wants to get out of this, because if he feels like if Trudell gets by him, he's never going to get back to him, then I guess it is worth the while to put up this fight now. But you are overdriving your car, especially when you start to deviate from your preferred line to be defensive, which is only really going to hurt both of you in the long run, but especially if you try to hold him up for a handful of laps that he eventually gets by you, that cars are going to be a lot worse off than it had just happened to the first or second attempt. So, we'll see how patient the 7 is going to be. The fact that he's able to, take a look, it's not going to happen. He'll drop back a couple of car lengths like right here. He's so good in that left-hander multiple times tonight in 11 to get right to the bumper, the 22. McClendon locked it up that time. He just can't figure out 12 and 13 right here. There's not enough extra to get an advantage down into 1. So that 7 car, who I think right now is better, I don't know by how much, but this constant pressure tells me Trudell's got the better race car, but McClendon doesn't seem any interest in pulling over and letting him go.
Yeah, he's going to not give this up without a fight at this point, I think, McClendon, because that 22, when you look at the practice times, was one of the quickest in the session. He was only a 10th off of Kyle Kamer in this type of a track condition. The clouds have added a bit more grip because it's cooled down the surface, and once they pit for their first time, they'll have much fresher tires and be able to handle the rubber around the track much more comfortably. That might be the difference in this position battle, so it's going to get interesting. The 7 at this point, nothing he can do at this point except hope for an opportunity and hope to use the bumper.
And he's on the inside. You saw the 22 car with the wiggle there as he sent him in the center. And Trudell on the radio now as he and Scott McClendon talk about it over driver radio communications. So he gave him a shot there. I don't think he meant to do it because you'd probably want to get him on entry as opposed to kind of in the center. You only backed yourself up too, but now the 22's got a back end torn up, and the 7's probably got some damage on the nose of his car in return. So if you thought this was the end of it, they're only getting started. And all of this funniness dropped them way off of the leaders as finally to the inside. He'll have a look into turn 1, and McClendon lets him go. Trudell finally breaking through and takes 3rd.
Bit of a scary moment trying to make the pass, but you had to make the move eventually. He, again, I don't think wanted to make the contact, but it was that little bit of a bobble that caused it. A bit of a pinch that time on McClendon. All of that fighting, though, has allowed Daniel Eberhardt to reel them in. He's only about 10 car lengths back of this battle.
And he has been running more consistent lap times. In fact, that last lap, he was over 2 seconds faster than them. So the question is, now that the 7's gotten ahead of the 22, is that going to be it? Is they going to, both pick back up lap times as this battle simmers down, or is Eberhardt going to stay on the charge? And don't look down. We are watching this 3-way battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but we've got a fight for the race lead on our hands as well. You could see the car behind interval at the top of the screen close down and in, an advantage that was once almost a second in favor of Friedage. Now has Kamer back within a couple of car lengths, challenging for the race lead as they complete lap 14.
When that track started to cool down, that's when the light switch turned on for Kamer to start pushing. He closed up a 10th and a half in 1 lap alone, and has been riding near the back bumper of the 88 in a lot of these chicanes for much of this stint now. It's going to be the question, though. What does he do to try and make the move? He's looking a bit more comfortable now compared to when it was more slick, and they've got multiple lap cars slipping and sliding in front of them.
And there's a couple of battles in front of the race leaders. Valderrama, Mosier, that's a side-by-side group. 15th and 16th position, last on the lead lap. You'll see the O2 car pull over to the right-hand side. He'll let Friedage go. He'll also make sure the 8 machine Kamer gets on to by, and then Mosier will give those cars the preferred lane into the next corner. So tricky move there for those lapped cars who are battling with each other to also give room to the leaders, and they were both able to do so without sacrificing that position amongst themselves. Mosier stays in front of Valderrama for that fight, so it doesn't hurt either of them to give those race leaders that space, and they've got more traffic not that much further up the road either in the 75 car SOA.
Yeah, and the lap traffic's been very cordial today and very polite at the very least. No one's been willing to fight too hard yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if the 75 moves out of the way down this front straightaway. Yes, indeed. Nearly in the racing line, but able to get to the bottom side. But that 1 lap Kamer with the side-by-side with traffic for just a little bit on a corner entry. lost him another couple tenths. 4 tenths lost last time by.
Yeah, that difference doubles from 4 tenths to 8 tenths. So now we're kind of back where we were not that long ago with Ferdinand. I mean, I don't want to call it a healthy margin ahead. If, you know, you're 8 tenths of a second up at an oval, you are check it out. But at a road course, 8 tenths of a second is nothing. So Kamer could certainly reel that 88 car back in, put a couple of laps together. He's done it before. But the 88 machine definitely navigated through that traffic better off, and I don't really think it was the traffic's fault. They certainly did what they could in a spinner now. The 90 of Eberhardt's around from P5. He had the 22 car. McLennan got his inside, and they touched.
Yeah, they were side by side. Eberhardt got the better run, heading towards the keyhole out of turn number 1. They were doing a drag race, in fact. But McClendon, I think, had a bit of a wheel hop, trying to break into the corner. Didn't mean to make contact, he's saying to the radio. Hits him once, then tries to charge the corner. Eberhardt tries to diamond in a touch, gets hit a second time, and gets spun around. And now his tires are completely buzzed, and he is not looking good now. Unfortunate, he was one of the biggest movers in one of the fastest cars, in fact, the fastest on the track.
He was disappointed with the runner-up finish just a week ago at Homestead, and going to take an odd board shot here as we ring around Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and see how he tries to navigate this one off of that recent spin. There's, I mean, no noticeable cosmetic damage, so you hit the nail on the head that his concern is going to be the tires as that thing spun sideways and heated up across the racetrack that right now has got a 100-degree track temp. Then the car is sideways again, and he's actually going to bring it to pit road, lap 16. He is in, so I don't know if it was scheduled or if because of the contact, but this would kind of put him in line with a two-stop strategy.
Well, he had first off already spun at least one other time, as mentioned, but second, he does have that damage to the right front as well as the right side, right around that 90 on the door, and he's checking out for the race. He is done.
So that is going to be it for Daniel Eberhardt. Obviously not happy with the contact, and well, he throws his hands up and goes home. So his night now comes to an early conclusion as he was still in that battle for a top 5 position. No doubt, Daniel Eberhardt came into tonight only 4th in the championship, in a very good position to fight for a serious good points finish, and not going the distance in this may hurt him. I know that it is not a full field as Kyle Kamer to the pits from 2nd position. So Eberhardt wasn't going for the 2-stopper, but I think the 8 car certainly is.
And this could get very, very interesting. This will divide it up to about lap 36 for the 2nd stop. Remember, Andrew was able to stretch it to 27 laps when testing on the racetrack today, but the difference is there was at least about a second or so in terms of pace between the older tires and the fresh tires. As well, the corner entry speed was vastly different. Kyle Kamer off and away with a 14.9.
And it's not the worst of pit lanes also. There's not a ton of dead space that you got to drive around. I mean, you're really almost taking that final corner at speed as aggressively as he drove it in there. So this is obviously going to drop him down in the running order. He'll end up at about P5 tentatively. And of course, this will all cycle through. So the hope for Kamer is again that the time that he gives up by pitting one more time than Ferdinand does. Again, this is all assuming that Andrew's going to go for the 1-stopper. You have to hope that that pit time can be made up by, of course, the time gained by getting those fresh tires on the race car. Just because Ferdinand can go halfway on fuel doesn't mean he's going to want to.
Exactly. There is a massive gamble of losing the amount of time right in this part of the stint right here. This is why drivers attempt the 2-stop in a lot of the road courses on the iRacing service. In the final 10 laps of a stint, the tires fall off a cliff for an additional second. It's the same kind of case in the V7 tire model where it's more aggressive tire fall off. So this is something many of the drivers have to hope they have the pace for. Here's the thing, Andrew's the fastest car on the track. Only a few other drivers are in the same 1 minute and 28 second bracket in the field on the older tires. That's the gamble at least he's trying to stretch at the moment.
And we don't have an accurate look at Kamer's updated lap time with the fresh tires because he was on to pit road actually. So his lap clocks it at a 1:51. That's not necessarily accurate. because of course that was counted while he was actually sitting in the box. So we'll get a better idea of how much time he makes up once they clock in this next time around. But if Renage was going to respond in any way because of Kamer's stop, or if he was going to go for the twofer, I don't really think pushing it towards lap 20 is the call, because then you'd have a 20, a 20, and a 10. I mean, it's a lot more skewed of stints as opposed to, about 18, 16, or whatever, that more so makes it even on the two-stopper. So the way it's looking, I think Renage wants to go for the one-stop strategy. Kamer would be on the 2. And then it would be very interesting because, again, unlike what we saw last week at Homestead, where Renage was on a different strategy as some of the other faster cars, he actually got caught out on that when a yellow came out. He was trapped back in traffic. Looked like that might have been the end-all, be-all for him. He was actually able to drive back up and still win that race. There's no fear of that happening. Your only concern is actually being involved in a wreck, because without any full-course yellows, you pretty much control your own destiny, as he'll drive it in hard to get around some lap traffic in Cunningham.
To get back to the point, though, with the 20-20-10 strategy, if he was to do that as well, he wouldn't cycle to the race lead with the faster lap times right now compared to Kyle Kamer. He would end up potentially falling back to second on the racetrack, and it's not a sure thing you get back by him despite the tire difference, because the tires would be only a couple tenths of a second difference on the older and the fresher tires. It's not a sure thing, but Kyle Kamer, a sure thing, is up to 4th.
He has been able to try to work his way back towards the front. He makes a move on the 5 of Rhett McBride, so takes that position away. Again, all of that arbitrary because McBride is not on the same strategy as him. And McBride had already been quite a ways behind these two when it happened. So this is all just kind of Kamer's tires working in. He put a 127.6 down last time. Only better than Renage by 0.4 of a second. I mean, the 88 car really good still on those 20-lap-old tires.
Well, I also don't mind that. Don't forget, has the fastest lap of the race from the first stint in this race on lap number 2. So he's good on the short run. The mid-run is where Andrew, I think, starts to pull a little bit for lap 6 until about lap 12. And then Kyle swings back towards his preference for laps 12 all the way towards the end of the run, as we've seen a little bit before. So this is right now to the point where he needs to keep it clean to be able to time it up with the 88, who is right now definitely in line for that one stopper, about 5 laps away or so from the halfway point as you keep up with the rest of the battles.
Yeah, it should be pretty much right on the money at that halfway point. Of course, you can keep track of where everybody is. Top of your screen as the running order cycles through. 11 cars right now, still on the lead lap. And at the pace that we're going, I think the top 5 might be the ones who stay on the lead lap through it. Of course, it would be, Renage and Kamer, the dueling strategies for the win. Ironically enough, Kamer really the only one of those top 5, fast 5, if you want to call him that, who has gone for the two-stopper. Seems like everybody else more committed to the one, so I wonder if it's Kamer going off of the kind of more universally accepted cycle because he felt like he needed that little bit extra to better Renage. I mean, they looked pretty even, but I would have given that slight edge to the 88, so maybe this is the 8 trying to make it easier on himself. Of course, you hope that you don't kind of overcompensate, and if he ends up way wrong on his call, he might be kicking himself, thinking, man, I should have just stuck with it. Only time will tell, and we still got, as of this time by, 29 laps still to go in this race, so plenty of time for it still to play out.
That's actually a great point, Evan, because looking at this right now, he is the only driver to even consider this strategy. Scott McClendon just ducked into the pit lane, mind you, as well. So this is a massive gamble for Kyle. Can he make it on the fuel? Leaning towards the no side of the 8 machine. McClendon, though, is leaning towards the yes side with this pit stop.
Yeah, he comes in and just a little bit shy of halfway through, so interesting that he decides to make the call now, and there is no shock that he's going to get 4 tires of fuel. 22 machine is back off and away. So he makes his one stopper just a little bit shy of halfway. I don't think any reason why he would try to split this one anyway, but maybe he felt like he was a little bit too aggressive. Remember, he was in that prolonged battle for third. Maybe felt like he ate away at those tires a little bit more than he wanted and feels like he can go longer. Second stint, because he isn't planning on overdriving the race car the same way. So maybe that's why he came in a tad bit earlier.
And it looks like the leader's going to come in, Andrew Freenach. He's coming in for his 4 tires and fuel. And it's definitely lined up at this point, Evan, to be the one stop for everybody except for Kyle Kamer. For that 8 machine, to loop back to that strategy would be a case where he's trying something different to get the W. The thing is, though, it's going to be very tricky for it to work since he will be the only driver on newer tires if it lines up the way it is looking here. He is projected for lap 36 to make the strategy work, and I don't know if 14, 15 laps would be enough as he cycles to the lead just barely.
And you can see him take off into turn 1 as Freenach gets back and around. So the 88 is back on track and up the road. Well, you can see the back end of Kyle Kamer right there, bottom of the screen. He turns in to corner number 2, the keyhole. That is the difference that he has to make up, but it is not just a run to the end because of when Kyle Kamer opted to come down to the pit lane. Again, he pitted at lap number 17 in this race. So even if he wanted to change his own strategy and say, all right, well, what if I just want to run this to the end because I may not have enough time to pit, catch back up? I don't think he can. That's out of the fuel window.
Yeah.
So for the 8 car, he's got to stick with it, and the 88 was sideways that time. So they're both trying to get after it now, but this isn't a situation where Kamer can call that audible and mix it up. He pitted early enough where he cannot go the distance, so he will have to make that one additional stop. You can book it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be interesting, and look how much time already the 88's gained up. That car you've seen up in front of Steve Cunningham, but right in front of him is already the 8 machine. Already picked up at least a couple seconds rather in this lap, and it doesn't help that Kyle Kamer has a lot of lap traffic that he had to cut through in all of this. That slowed up a bit more as he gets by the 00 of Jared Volgaard.
He's able to get on through Mogard, so Mogard will drop a lap down as he had already gotten lapped, in fact, by race leader Kyle Trudell. Don't forget about all of this in the mix as well, is with that little bit of an early trip to the pit lane for a lot of these race leaders. The 70 car probably sticking to more so with coming in literally at about that halfway point and split this in two. So he has become the race leader. So Kyle Kamer is second position. You can see the gap between he there and the white car in the background of Andrew Freenach. The 88 is closing. So again, you see that gap. You think that, all right, well, Freenach is one who's got to come from behind here. But again, with the 88 still having to pit, he's going to have to drop way back. And I don't know how good it's looking for the 8 car as we close in on halfway home.
The hard braking zones is the definite surefire. Kamer having to brake basically at the start of the yellow rumble strips. Andrew's able to brake at the halfway point to gain just that bit much more. I don't know how this is going to work out for Kyle. I'm just going to say that out loud at this point because it's a massive risk being the only driver on the 2 stop. He is in line potentially for a top 5 still, mind you, in pace, but this is going to be very tricky. Gap is down to 1 straight.
Yeah, the question comes down to, if he gets a top 5, it ain't the end of the world. It's good points, but I think without going off strategy, if you will, at worst, that was the second placed car. So this is where Trudell, who's into the pit lane, as you mentioned, and these two now cycle actually back to the legitimate first and second positions on track. Trudell or somebody could be the one to benefit if Kamer drops way. I mean, if he misses by a lot. The difference between, Freenach and maybe the next car, not counting Kamer, may be double digits of seconds. So the 8 would really have to miss to throw himself completely out of second position entirely. But we'll see as that 88 machine is closing in, and Kamer, to kind of make this work, still has to go at least about 10 more laps before he comes down for a second time, and he's already feeling that difference.
Yeah, nearly 2 seconds difference last time by between him and the 88 machine in terms of pace. And right now, looking at the projections in terms of the pit stop lane difference, about 34 seconds at the most. He'd cycle all the way back to the 6th position, right around where Bobby Krug is at the moment in the 51 machine. So that is a lot of time to make up. I don't know if you can make up 30 seconds in that amount of time. But at this point, that 88 wants his lead back and wants it now.
He is all over him as they challenge for the race lead. Nobody up in front of them on the racetrack, so they've got ample opportunity to fight this one out. And you know, we talked about drivers trying to hold up slower cars. McClendon in that fight for 3rd position and whatnot. And you know, kind of question if that was the play. If I'm the 8 machine, I'm really going to put up a fight here. I do not want Ferdinand to get around me and start to run away. So we'll see if the 8 buys into that. Is he going to put up that big fight and make Ferdinand work for it? Because in the past, the 88 machine has kind of been the I don't know if the lackadaisical is the right way to put it, but maybe non-confrontational. If somebody's blocking him, he normally plays the long con. He wants to conserve his equipment, let them eat up theirs, and you know, eventually he'll make the move and it kind of comes back to him. But with this tire situation, I think that the longer the 88 sits behind the 8, doesn't matter if the 8's tearing his equipment up, he needs to slow down Ferdinand. So if I'm Ferdinand, I want to make that move a little bit quicker, and I'm going to be more aggressive trying to make this pass that I think I normally am in, you know, a similar circumstance.
Yeah, indeed. With the 88, though, too, he's got a 20-second advantage if once Kyle Kamer comes into pit. So he's got that in his bank. But the main thing, though, too, is for Kyle, if he can hold up Andrew Freenach more and more, it's less work for him once he elects to come down. So those different factors have to play in for both of those drivers. And at this point, it's going to get a bit tougher. Drivers are exiting the pit lane right around them.
And you can see all these cars in the mix as the 88 looks high. It'll set him up for the outside of turn 2, and he'll go to outbreak the 8 car side by side for the lead. Kamer leaning a little bit that time on Ferdinand and stays in front. Now here's the crossover down the back straightaway. The 8 car blocked to the inside. They'll go to the dog leg now. The 8 car real shallow. Ferdinand again to the outside. Now down in turn 4. Kamer doesn't want to give it up. More contact now. Now Ferdinand has got the inside as they go through 5, still nose to nose.
And they've got lap traffic closing into on fresher tires, but the fresher tires of the 88 help him, and look at that pinch.
He finally got him. Andrew Ferdinand able to make that pass on Kamer. They went toe-to-toe, and ironically enough, it was on the outside that the 88 finally did it as they went up through turns 7 and 8. And the 8 machine obviously did what we expected. A valiant effort to try to slow Ferdinand down. But now that 88 car is going to start to set sail. Kamer is, in theory, again, just past halfway. He could pit now, but at that point, you might as well just gone for the one-stopper. So the 8 can pit, get fuel, and go the distance. But again, that doesn't make sense for his strategy.
Yeah, he might have to come down probably in the next couple laps or so. The more he stays out, the more this hurts the strategy, losing 2 seconds a lap. And the more you stay out, the more time you will very much lose on the racetrack. Should note that Rick McBride, who was in 5th position after his pit stop, has pulled his car into the garage area. He has stopped on the inside the pit box, but not in the race car. He crashed on his pit entry.
So a problem coming onto pit road. We've seen a couple of drivers really dig on it, trying to get into the pit lane. Eventually, you almost take that final quarter, you know, at speed, just the way it lines up with 12 and 13. And unfortunately, ends up into the barrier in that one. But again, no yellow. We stay at it. More lapped cars diving out of the way for the leaders.
And the 0-2 nearly lost control right in front of Kamer. He's still bobbling around.
Yeah, the 0-2 is the one I was talking about. He went out into the grass to allow Ferdinand to buy, and he lost traction with the right-hand side of that car, and got a little squirrely, but he was able to reel her back in, and Kamer was far enough behind that everything is A-okay there. Now the Nana George going to try to do the same thing.
Yeah, George right now, mind you, is in 7th position. The first driver a lap down. He's been getting better and better as this race has progressed, we should note. He started in the 128s in qualifying and practice, gained some time. He's in the 130s at the moment right now, but he is right now the fastest of the drivers, a lap down at the moment. So he's been able to put down a good race after the ups and downs in practice and qualifying, where it took some time for him to adjust to this racetrack.
And at this point, you can think that these drivers pretty much dialed in the strategy, clear-cut it off, that they probably have a really good idea of how this one's going to play out as we close in on the final 20 laps. But we did get to that halfway point. All of the drivers on the one-stop strategy have come in and completed their service. So let's take a look top to bottom at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. Andrew Frenage in front. The current interval sits at 2.5 seconds as he's the top. Kyle Kamer P2, and then a big difference to Kyle Trudell, who sits in third. He's been able to break apart from McClendon in fourth. Again, those two drivers had quite a battle a little bit earlier on as well. Then it's Bobby Crew, kind of the best of the rest here. He sits in position 5, and Joshua Baird a little bit further more down the road, but still within striking distance is P6. Right now, he's the final car on the lead lap. Then Thomas George a lap down in 7th. Guy Brooks is running at 8th spot. Ross Cato is 9th, and Brian Chambliss rounds out your top 10.
Jared Mogart still 1 lap down. It's in 11th position, the 00. Then you have Steve Sower in the 12th position. He's in a battle right now for that position, though, with Michael Moser in the 13th position, the 54 is. Then you have Trevin Vanderama, the first driver 2 laps down in 14th spot, while Steve Durham is in 15th position in the 10 machine. Sean Kalist, he's in the midst of problems right now, just in front of China Beach. He is the last car 2 laps down and is already coming back in track in front of the 75. Brett McBride is the first driver off the track 3 laps down after his crash on the pit lane entry. That came on lap 26. Steve Cunningham, he has pulled his car to the garage area after having a spill in the race car. While Daniel Eberhardt, he pulled in the race car 12 laps ago with 19th. Todd Novosad, he's 25 laps down in 20th.
Those back 4 all in the garage. That's but a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything that you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go to FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. And while it may not be all the way, I think the only spot that actually may change from our midway break to the very end again is Kamer, the really only kind of highlighted question mark in the field who still needs a trip down to the pit lane. And of course, would like to catch Frenage in the mix, but I think he may be relegated back here into position 2 for the rest of it. But we're inside of the final 20 laps in Mid-Ohio. So as we wait for that final trip down to the pit lane for the gate, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. You're watching the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series from Mid-Ohio. Frenage in front on the iRacing Esports Network. And back live for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is LSR TV's coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series. Continues tonight for round of 4 of 10 in the NPHY.org 113. As always, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, Randy Chanted with you as we're working lap number 35 of 50. Took that opportunity to ride around on board for a couple of laps. You could hear Kyle Kamer, who is running and still is in second position, to get this car around this racetrack with tires squirreling and all on every single quarter as they try to get the power down on these Xfinity Series cars. The situation, though, still the same. Ferdinand, your leader, by now 5.4 seconds. Good for the distance. Kamer still needing to pit another time, as next time will take 15 laps to go.
And it's growing each and every lap because of the fresher tires of the 88 machine. I'm surprised we haven't seen the 8 go up there, but at this point, Kyle Kamer's committed to the strategy to try and out-strategize this 88. But it's going to be tough for it to make it work. It would be estimated this time by, based on when he came before, that Kyle Kamer tries it to try and somehow reel in the 88.
And we'll see, because honestly, for a lot of the time that we were riding out of board with him there, as you can see the traffic that Ferdinand was in up the road, I mean, Kamer kept him kind of honest. It sat at 3 seconds for the longest time, and then he slowly started to eventually drop back in this one, and I think that was mainly because on lap 31, Ferdinand put down a 2 second slower lap time than his 127, so Kamer was able to close in that regard, and in a sense, started to pull back away at that steady pace. But, we kind of expected Kamer's pit stop might come at about 36 or so. That is the lap we're currently working out of 50. So let's see how close we were, and if the 8 car's coming in this time or very shortly, because the longer he stays out again, you might have to worry about dropping behind Kyle Trudell probably for third on track.
Yeah, that's one main worry, because Trudell, before he can reach traffic, was actually the fastest car on the track by 0.6 of a second. Then he lost 5 seconds in a mix of it. But will Kamer take the high arc into the pit lane? No. He's electing to stay away from it for the time being, coming to 14 laps to go. But again, he is still losing that 1 second a lap.
Yeah, that's just going to be, and again, the interval will go back in his favor once he pits, but I mean, Kyle Kamer, his best lap of the night, came early, fresh tires, a 126.6. If he were even to be able to pull those out, you're still looking at, a second and a half difference to Frenage. I mean, even if he could maintain that and have no tire fall off, you still need more than a second and a half. Is there a chance the 88 makes a mistake? Well, I mentioned that 1 minute 29 second lap he did a couple of laps ago, so it's not impossible. But I wouldn't expect wholesale mistakes. And I think a spinner up the road from Kamer. There was a ton of smoke up there on the racetrack. Everything clear as the race leaders get on through. It was the 23 of Joshua Baird who completely locked the car up and cut the corner right in front of the 8 machine about 2 turns ago.
Yeah, and he had just tried to make the pass before, so this is not going to help the 8's case whatsoever. If I was Kyle, and you are at this point, which he looking to be indeed is on the 2 stop, go in this time by, because you can't afford to lose any more time trying to deal with lap traffic. Try and come into the pit lane as quick as you can. This isn't going to help lap traffic also taking the high arc.
Yeah, sometimes lapped cars can, do their best and guess which way you want to go. But again, at a road course, if they get up and on the high side, and turns out the 8 wasn't going to pit that time anyway, so it didn't hurt them all that much, as the 23 really just kind of overcooked the corner as opposed to pulling over. But a lot of the time, lap traffic's going to go to the outside to let you go through, and you can see this straightaway makes it nice and easy for the 23, and that's how it's done. But at the other half of the racetrack, if you go to the outside one corner, if that guy doesn't clear you like you thought he would, well, all of a sudden, you're messing up his exit, or you're on the inside for the next corner. So right down there in the run to 2, and right here at the end of the long straightaway in the 4, probably the easiest passing zones for cars to be able to get through traffic. And Cameron didn't lose a ton of time in that exchange, but he's now way back as 2 more cars are on pit road. Michael Bozier and Steve Soa in on the 2-stop strategy.
A lot of teammates actually finding the way in. We've seen Trevor Vanderama also duck his way in, so looks like a few drivers are also now jumping on to the 2 stops dice at this point for pit stops at this point.
Yeah, they all came in and decided to pit together. The O2 machine had kind of lost touch with the others. But Soa and Mosier get back out of the racetrack together. They're funny to 4 positions, 12 and 13. And we'll see if that group loses anything, as they'll probably end up 3 laps down if Frenage could get to him. He's already rocketed down the front straightaway. There's another lap for Kyle Kamer, who still decides not to come down pit road. And kind of funny, as soon as we got to about lap 30, we figured, well, it's probably a little bit early than what he would have wanted. But if he wants to salvage this, probably just come in and pit, and instead he's gone the opposite direction. Instead of short pitting, he's now gone longer on this second stint.
Yeah, you have to wonder at this point if he's trying to even save fuel at this point, because that's potentially at this point a possibility. Because remember, we've seen McClendon pit the earliest out of the projected 1-stoppers, so it's an interesting call. It's a very interesting call at this point from Kyle Kamer.
And I think that, if we kind of accept the fact, in this battle that he's not going to be able to catch Frenage and reel him down from whatever, then you have to focus on just maintaining second. And if you were to try to save fuel and you can't, you're going to lose third, you're going to lose fourth. I mean, he could drop way back. Whereas if you just kind of accept the fact that you're not going to beat Frenage, and I don't know if he's at that point in his mind, but, just looking at the lap times, that's what I'm starting to think has kind of been the realization here. Then you're battling with Kyle Trudell, who's 10 seconds behind you. Well, you're going to give up more than 10 seconds onto pit road, so just pit. I mean, get it out of the way, get the fresh tires, and go fight with the 7 car. I mean, I can understand the gamble, the stretch, if you thought you still had a chance to go for the win, but, I mean, if I'm him now, I'm just worried about maintaining P2, and I think that does change things.
Yeah, and even if he can make it to the finish, that's just the main thing, though. Kyle Trudell is right now the fastest car on the racetrack, and the 128.5's that time by. He's got the freshest tires out of the entire top 5 since he stretched it out an extra 5 laps further or so compared to the 88, and about double digits at least over top the 8 machine. So there's a chance that Kamer, if he saved, and this is the if, will end up being reeled in by the 7, and he's going to have to play defense in the final 5 laps if he tries this.
And I think it's still better just to be on the offensive, but at lap 40, it looks like that this may be the direction that the 8 car of Kamer's going. The other car in this mix is McClendon. Again, he was once upon a time that P3 car, and Kyle Trudell took a little bit of time to finally get it done, but he did pass him for that spot and has since pulled 24 seconds ahead of him. So I don't think McClendon is a threat to Kamer. He'll probably safely and comfortably finish this race in P4. As you can see all the traffic that Trudell's dealing with right now. He's got Joshua Baird all over him. A couple more cars. Jared Bogard left the machine. Going to allow them both to go on through. Bobby Krug also going to be lapped shortly by Fernandez. That would put us down to just 4 cars on the lead lap. And that looks like that may be the number this race would end at.
And one thing to note, the main reason the 7 hasn't been able to get up to Kyle Kamer or Andrew Freenach has been traffic management. He struggled with that today. Remember, he was in a group of as much as 5 drivers at one point. While the 88, he's been able to get through the most efficiently, I'd have to dare say, compared to much of the field. So he has just been able to gain some time. Yes, he does lose a bit here and there, but the others double that amount of lost time that the 88 has to deal with in the traffic. Kyle Trudell, he dropped another second or so in that traffic we just seen a moments ago, and by the way.
Well, since that look at our FEG midway race break, nobody else has dropped out of this race so far. Still just McBride, Cunningham, Eberhardt, and Novosad who have gone to garage. So 16 race cars still on track at the moment. Again, just kind of being a numbers crunch here to see what the 8's going to do. Is really the only question mark left in this one for Radaj. If he could hang on, no shock that he's good on the road courses, but even he said that Kyle Kamer was going to be the one that he was worried about. And, well, yes, Kyle did top practice. I think it all comes down to what I hinted at on the pit stops is that just a 0.3 of a second difference in quality earlier. Maybe if he out-qualifies for Radaj and starts ahead of him, even if the 88's on his bumper, like he was on the back of the 88 15 laps into the race, maybe he doesn't decide to come down for the 2-stop strategy. And if those cars are still even, then who knows how this thing plays out. I think that this race may have been decided in the difference between a 126.8 and a 127.1 earlier in the night. Fernandez pulled out his best lap of the evening in that Q session, 0.2 better than his best time from practice. Kamer did not. He was a whole half a second slower than his best time at practice, and that difference may have been a big deciding factor.
Yeah, the track position game worked out for the 88. That in turn has worked to the point where he's been able to pull off and away from the 8 machine since then. If it was the other way around, there's a chance we would have seen Kyle Kamer do the same thing and play defense on the 88 machine and force Andrew to burn up his equipment. Thing is, Andrew forced Kyle to burn up the equipment, forced the different strategy, and now, because of it, 8 seconds back, still 9 seconds ahead though of third position, in part because the lap traffic. At this point though, Kamer's going to have to hope he keeps the tires off and well. He is now a little bit faster compared to Kyle Trudell on some of the laps, depending on how that 7 attacks the corners. The 8 looking pretty stable now.
And this is all dependent on if that 8 car can go the distance. Again, working lap number 43, he came down to the pit lane at lap 17 earlier in this race. So that is now officially right at the longest run we've seen of the night. We saw the 27-lap run by Fernandez to practice. Thought that might have been the limit. But the 8 car proving that maybe they could go even further than that on fuel, which would make, honestly, the 2-stop call even that much more intriguing.
Yeah, I would have still even tried the 2-stop at this point, because why not? The traffic management, yes, would have potentially lost you time, but compared to how Kyle Kamer attacked this on the older tires, it was a gamble. I think he was maybe hoping that he was going to jump much further ahead of him than he did in front of Andrew, because I think he knew that about that mid-run balance and how difficult it can be to pass in some of the sections, but it just didn't work out. He only got a couple seconds ahead of Andrew Freenach in the cycle for the pit stops. and it's not swung his way.
It has just not worked out. And listen, if there's two different pitch strategies, only one person can have the right one. I mean, we've had races where, you know, the strategies keep drivers way apart from one another, and well, at the end of the race, they end up right on top of each other. I mean, there are times where both are viable options, but one has to be better than the other. And even in RSR competition over the years, at Sonoma, so many times has the 1 or 2 stop strategy led drivers to be right on top of each other, battling late as you see the O2 car of Valderrama get out of the way for the 7 of Trudell, who continues to lap into position number 3. But tonight does not appear to be one of those, you know, microscopic differences of an evening. Certainly looks like that the strategy to stay on plan is better.
The 8's off in the sand trap of the keyhole.
That was down at the far end in turn number 2, and it was on his own. He had just started to really benefit over Trudell. We missed it live, so you'll see the replay here. The left-hander's turn 1 takes that nice and fine, and the back end of the race car certainly cooperated well there, but then it's in this hard braking zone right here. Hard on the brakes, and as soon as the car just did not turn in, I mean, he was just too deep into the corner, handed up and off it into the sand, and that brings Trudell that much closer now.
Yeah, lost him a lot of time. He tried to get it shifted down to try and get it to rotate, but that's where that spin came from in turn, trying to keep it out of the sand. He doesn't downshift, that thing's off into the tire barrier. But now, how much time did he lose? About 3 seconds. It's down to a 6-second gap. And Kyle Kamer came over the radio saying he was not happy with how his strategy worked out. And now it's going to get even more tougher because Kyle Trudell, he's now got clean track to try and reel in the 8.
Hey, this is really a real fight now. It was kind of a question of intervals before and fuel, but even Kyle Kamer, if he can keep it onto the racetrack, Trudell might be able to get to him with about 6 laps still left to go in this race. The difference between the two of them at the line, still 5.4 seconds, so he needs a second per lap. If Kamer can avoid any major mistakes, he'll be fine, but he threw away 4 seconds in that one blip alone, and he is very careful this time through turn 2 in the keyhole to be careful with it. Another 4-second mistake, and that is that entire advantage that is in your favor erased at that point. It'll be 5 laps to go this next time by. Coverage of this Icebreaker Winter Series, as always, is supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. The NPHY is the most comprehensive service provider for the thousands of young people experiencing homelessness in our community, providing access to life-changing services for homeless youth 24 hours a day at virtually every street corner in Southern Nevada. NPHY's wraparound programs stabilize young people's lives, meeting their immediate needs and providing a safe, supportive environment and a path to self-sufficiency. The NPHY's individualized, holistic services empower young people to not only achieve long-term independence, but to craft the futures they want for themselves. You can go to nphy.org for more information on how you can volunteer and help make a difference in your community. It is, of course, tonight's nphy.org 113. Another lap in the back pocket for Ferdinand. You see the 8 car there. Takes 5 laps to go. His 129.1 faster than Trudell with the 129.3. So if the 8 car can keep that pace up, he's good. You can barely see Kamer on the horizon there as we go on board with the 7.
Yeah, he's trying to push as hard as he can, and you have to wonder if it's burned a little bit of the goodie out of the tires. Should note, he does have a bit of aero damage. You see that right front fender? That might slow him down a bit down the straights and take some of the speed out in this section specifically, and that might balance it out a little bit to make it a bit more difficult. He's been charging these brakes so hard, he's nearly locking up the tires trying to reel in that 8.
He's really pushing it, and at this point, it was Kamer who had to be concerned about his tires. Again, kind of throwing off his strategy for the 2-stopper, decide to make that audible call, which I didn't think was going to be possible or an option, and still don't think it may have been the right decision, but at the end of the day, that's why they're down there driving and we're not, because I don't know if I'd be able to keep up with these guys within 5 or 6 seconds every single time around. So they know what they're doing, But, you know, for Trudell here now, as he starts to, you know, as the 8 actually made the mistake and the 7 started to see him, it kind of amped the 7 up. And he's the one who should have the better tires, who shouldn't be having to overdrive the car. And, well, now he's kind of the one that is overdriving it, which in turn helps the 8 machine to back out. Last time by, Trudell better by 0.3, but that's still nowhere near enough what he needs.
Yeah, not even close to where he needs at this point. I think the tires have balanced out for the middle point of the run, maybe at the right moment for the 8 to try and hold on. As long as he doesn't reach the traffic at the wrong point, he's in a great spot to try and still hold on to second position. And to loop back to where he might not have liked the strategy again, he said it himself. He's not happy with how it's turned out. And I don't blame him. It was a massive, massive gamble that realistically wouldn't have made a lot of sense in this race, and it's turned out to be the case. Heck, I would have tried to go long at this point because we've seen how much Kyle Trudell was in terms of pace. If Kyle Kamer tries to do it, we might be talking about a fight for the race lead with 5 to go.
And it's all these different options and all the different possibilities. And speaking of the race lead for Friedrich, he's actually got a lot of traffic right now. Working around Kalis, the 43 car will drop to 4 laps down. Looks like Michael Mosier next up. He will also put him 3 laps down. So Kalis falls 4 down, Mosier falls 3 down, and he's able to navigate through that traffic. Bobby Krug in this mix also. I thought that 5 might have been the number of cars that were able to stay within a lead lap of Friedrich. Not the case, as Krug has since gotten lapped. That'll most likely stay at 4, with Friedrich, Kamer, Trudell, and McClendon staying on the lead lap in whatever order they actually end up finishing this race in. But it is clean sailing for the 8 car. I mean, he's not dealing with all this traffic. It's up the road. But I think he'll be able to make it through, as next time by, they'll see popsicle sticks in the air.
Indeed, it's going to come down maybe depending on how the traffic is. If Kyle Kamer gets towards the back end of that massive group of traffic that's just up the road, this is the Steve Durham, Sean Kalis, Michael Moser, and Bobby Krug group I'm referring to here. That might be enough for the 7 to try and reel in a little bit, but it might not be enough. But at this point, you have to give credit to Kyle Kamer. A stellar performance, despite the different strategy, has been clearly one of the top 3 drivers today, and he's made it to show he's been able to hold on in second despite being on the older tires, and has still been a top 3 race car on the track.
And it is an impressive run. You want to talk about, you know, where this sits in the points picture. Friedrich, if he could go on to get his 3rd win in a row, is going to rocket out in front as he looks to back up a back-to-back Full Throttle Cup Series championship with an opportunity to maybe go back-to-back. And there's a wreck on the front straightaway right in front of Kamer. Durham's around. He's off it in the sand trap. He was the one who was blocking the road as Kalis spun out, tagged Durham, and that is not a very wide front straightaway. The race leaders barely made it on through. Watch the replay here. You'll see Kalis spin first, the 10 will get tagged, and shortly thereafter the 8 car comes in.
Just over rotation for the 43, coming off the corner, maybe hit the gas a bit too hard. Just barely, though. That 10 got the left front and just swings him hard into the concrete barrier. That is a hard hit for the race car and lost Kamer another 2 seconds. And then Durham says, I got to get off this racetrack. There's more cars coming, and swings it as hard as he can to the sand trap to get out of the way and stop impeding the traffic. Man, that was a dicey way to get down the front stretch.
Well, I know he's the guy in the middle of the racetrack. It looks bad on him, but he really didn't have anything to do with it. It was just a spin by Kalis, and him sending it off and into the sand trap was a real good move. Kamer got so lucky there, though. If he was on that scene a little bit sooner, that car's still spinning. He may have to go all the way off the racetrack to get around it. But good thing that those cars saw the leaders coming, held the brakes, allowed him to get on through, and then pull off the racetrack. As up at the front, Andrew Friedrich sees the white flag. Final trip around from Mid-Ohio.
And for Andrew, it's just been pure dominance. Has led just about every single lap, and it's just shown a strong amount of pace. Kyle Trudell, though, you have to say, though, he is still the fastest car on the racetrack. I don't know if there's going to be enough time. It's within 15 car lengths to the 8 machine. Still a massive distance, though, on a road course. Make it 3/4 of a straightaway.
He's got tons of space out in front. Kamer with that little bit of a small bobble as he tried to get around the block track. Lost some time to Trudell. Not enough, though, I think, for the 7 car to be a serious threat. And what a night for Andrew Friedage. After coming off of a top 3 finish in the season opener at Daytona, went to work, winning at Atlanta, winning at Homestead, Miami, and now he will show them how it's done once more, this time on the only road course of this 2020 campaign, and it'll certainly look to rocket him way out in front of the championship. A lot can happen in the 6 weeks that are still to come, but the 88 car showing you that he can get work done on Monday nights. It doesn't matter what kind of a race car you put him in. Final set of quarters for Andrew Friedage, who is going to come at a 12 and 13 and take the checkered flag. His 3rd in a row comes at Mid-Ohio.
Here dominates once again for the 88 machine. It's going to be tough to stop him as the season progresses, though, because when you're hot, and he is super red hot after this race.
And he absolutely put on a show. He had those small points in this race where, I don't know if you could even call it a mistake, but he had off laps, but he never made that critical error. He made the right decision on the pit strategy call, and I think, again, that may just come down to the fact that he was better in qualifying, gave him that freedom, and he is once again a winner with no Hulslander in this race, who came into tonight 2nd in the points. He will grow ahead of Trudell, who he already had an advantage of 32 points ahead. It is all the 88 car at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and his competitors behind him, Daniel Eberhardt. He had a rough race today. Remember, he was one of the first DNFs. Scott McClendon, he's going to get decent points in the 4th position as the last driver in the lead lap. But drivers like Sam Nieto, Malik Ray, Bobby Terrell, all did not make the start. This is going to be a massive points lead, potentially, for Andrew Friedage after this one.
And we expect when we go to these road course races that you'll see less cars, but oftentimes, it's not those championship caliber or contender cars that don't make it. So this start really helps the 88 because every week counts towards the championship standings. But the 88 car's made his way all the way back around, and he'll celebrate as a 3-time winner in 4 tries in the RSR Icebreaker Winter Series. Total domination by Andrew Friedage. We'll take one opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with him and the rest of his top 3 competitors, and we'll get you set for round number 5. Come to you next Monday from Iowa. But it's Friedage on top. Post-race is next. You're watching the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And welcome back live to the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, where LSR TV's coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, continued with round 4 of 10 this evening. And it is Andrew Ferdinand in victory lane once more as we welcome you back into the LSR TV booth. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, along with Randy Janet. We'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers in just a moment. Before we do so, let's look top to bottom. This time, actually, at our Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Ferdinand is going to victory lane, a margin of 10.5 seconds atop Kyle Kamer, who wasn't able to make what was, do we call it a one-stop or the two-stop? But the early pit-stop strategy worked. He is going to come home, though, in second position still. Only 3 seconds atop Kyle Trudell. Those will be the drivers we'll be talking about in just a moment. Them, and then only also Scott McClendon in P4, finishing on the lead lap in this one. So the lap down includes P5 through 10. It'll be Bobby Krug, Joshua Baird, Thomas George, Brian Chambliss, Gael Brooks, and Ross Cato.
Rest of the field, multiple laps down. Jared Mogart, 11th position, 2 laps down. Michael Mosier, 3 laps down in 12. Steve Sora, along with Trevin Valderrama, finished in 14th. Sean Kalis, 4 laps down in 15th. Steve Durham, remember, he was involved in an incident with the 43, 4 laps down as well for him in 16th. Brett McBride, it was a race of what-ifs. Starting in 3rd, had a good launch out of the lead group. Then his car went off in the sand trap, dropped to 8th, then crashed on pit entry. He finished 25 laps down in 17th. Right behind him, Steve Cunningham, 26 laps down. He parked it around the halfway point. And Danny Eberhardt, 34 laps down. He was battling for position at one point with McClendon. 20th position, Todd Novosad. One driver did not make the start. Andres Nunez did not make the start this evening.
That'll be a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go to FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Now trackside at RealSimRacing victory lane for a 3rd week in a row is Andrew Ferdinand, who's on top tonight for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Andrew, congratulations. We knew that you were going to be a threat coming into this one, but I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting it to be double digits at the end.
Yeah, sorry about the mic. My other one wasn't working for whatever reason, so it's a little worse, I know, but this is what I got tonight. Happy holidays, everybody, just to start off there. And, yeah, I mean, it was a ton of practice this week. I mean, with the new tires, a road course, everything, it was so much work to figure it out. And I got to give a big shout out to Kyle. I would have been nowhere near as fast without him. He worked with it. And for us to get a 1-2, we practiced all week, is the coolest thing in the world. But, yeah, I mean, I was surprised there. Kyle kind of stole my strategy and caused me to go longer, but I guess it ended up working out for me.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question because it looked like more cars opted to go for the one-stopper, and we thought with his pit stop coming there that the call may have been to go for 2, and of course, after you make your pit stop at halfway, you were close enough that I think at that point we realized that your strategy was going to work anyways, but it was the 8 car who actually stole it away from you.
Yeah, I was talking to him before the race, and he actually went Lone Star there by himself. I was going to tell him I was changing my strategy, but I wanted to come in on lap 18, and the reason I was going to do that is me and Kyle practiced all week. I thought we were pretty even on speed, and it was just all track position. So I wanted to get out front. If you short pitted, you were gaining about 3 seconds. So I don't know what happened to him. He should have been a lot more further out in front of me, and by the time I was supposed to catch him, we would have been even on tires. But for the reason I came off pit road right behind him, I figured out that lap 22 was the optimal time to pit if you weren't going to do the short strategy. So that's what I ended up doing. And again, I was shocked how close I was. I think he may have had a bad stop or something of that nature.
We were able to end up at victory lane in this one, and of course, you had alluded to it before, but we really haven't had Mid-Ohio on a calendar in quite some time. And on top of that, the new tires. How busy was this week? What were some of the biggest challenges trying to get prepped for this one? You mentioned you and Kyle doing a lot of testing.
Yeah, I'm lucky I'm off of school for winter break right now, or it would have been difficult. It's definitely going to be interesting next week too, just the first race on an oval, but it was a ton of work, a lot of practice. This tire is like nothing I've seen before. It matters with the rubber on the track, whether it's wearing or not, or how hard you drive it in. It's a whole new thing, and I think you're gonna see some guys race to the occasion, and some guys like me maybe struggle for a little bit with it.
We look forward to seeing how that one plays out. Again, it'll be the final one of the calendar year next Monday, December the 30th at Iowa. But for tonight from Mid-Ohio, Andrew, and 3 wins in a row, who do you want to say hi to from Victory Lane?
You just want to say happy holidays to everybody again. Big shout out to Kyle again. He helped me so much. I can't even express it. For us to get a 1-2, it just feels like a win. I really wanted him to win tonight, and it's a shame he couldn't get it done like that. But everybody over at Aegis, all the fans for watching, all the drivers, is that it?
I'll tell you what, we appreciate you being in this series, and we appreciate the time, Andrew. Again, congrats on the win.
Thanks so much.
The race winner tonight in the NPHY.org 113. Flip side of that duo is Kyle Kamer, who comes home second tonight. Justin, your trackside with him.
Thank you very much, Evan. An interesting strategy call and an interesting answer from Andrew, Kyle. Apparently, he mentioned the strategy was originally his idea. What happened, though, when you tried to execute that same plan pitting early on in the race?
I don't know if you remember, like 2 years ago, and Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Pern got Kevin Harvick to pit early, and then they waited a few laps and then drove right by him at the end of the race. Andrew tricked me exactly like that. He was talking about pitting on lap 18, and since I was right behind him, I wanted to undercut to try to get in front of him, and so I went in on 17, and then when I did that, he just stayed out until 22 or whatever it was, and then at that point, the tires were just, I had no chance.
Yes, indeed. I was going to ask, though, because Andrew thought you would be at least an extra 3 seconds ahead. What happened after a pit stop to not have that happen, so to speak? Because the 88 was curious about that in his interview, actually, and when discussing that strategy.
Yeah, so one of the risks of pitting early or short pitting is that you have more traffic to drive through. And so where you catch that traffic is critical. And, I had a couple of situations where I just caught cars in the wrong place and I had to slow down to be careful getting around them, and cost me extra time. So, I don't know how much time that cost me, but definitely slowed me down.
One of the main things I'm curious about, though, as you're one of the fastest drivers on the track with the second place finish today, how did you feel about the V7 tire model? Because this is the first time the series has raced with the Xfinity cars with that tire model in 2019-20. What are your thoughts on the tire model on the Xfinity car?
It'll be really interesting to see once we get into a setup that is built specifically for this tire model. We were running the old, setup and the new tires, and the car didn't quite feel like it was in the track. So I don't know if that's going to change, if you made some adjustments with the setup, or if that's kind of how it's going to feel. It'll be interesting when we go to Iowa next week, get back on the ovals and see, if overheating the tires causes them to fall off at all.
That was actually going to lead to my next question in terms of Iowa. Your thoughts on going to the short tracks once again, and a very fun one, in fact, in terms of a driver's short track.
Iowa could be interesting because there's about 3 or 4 different lines that you could run around that track and still be fast. I don't know. I'll have to defer to Andrew since he seems to be at the front of all these races.
With that, is there anyone you want to thank or anybody you want to thank before we let you get going?
Yeah, I want to thank my wife for allowing me to spend the time doing this. Andrew, especially, we had a lot of time practicing together this week and helping each other out. That was a lot of fun. Everybody over at Aegis and No Name Motorsports, my sponsors, Box Crush, web development and digital marketing, and Interstate Batteries All-State Battery Center in Sandusky, Ohio, and also SK Sim Racing.
Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations on the second place tonight, Kyle.
Thanks, Justin.
It's Kyle Kammer coming home second, 10 seconds back of Andrew Freenach on a different strategy. Back over to you, Evan.
We'll keep it in the similar ballpark at Bogo trackside with Kyle Trudell, who comes home with third position in this one, and it should bump him up to second in the overall championship picture. Kyle, congratulations. Yet another good result for you. 4 top 10 finishes opening 4 weeks, and it continued through a tricky one at Mid-Ohio. Just talk us through this race. Of course, an early battle. You end up taking over third and almost actually closed it into P2 before it was done.
Yeah, I had a great time tonight. It was a challenge for sure. I didn't have that many practice laps, so I was just kind of jumping into it. But car felt pretty good. I like the new tire model, and I think that it's going to be a lot of fun moving forward on some of these oval tracks. We'll see what happens.
We'll get a first look at that as we go to Iowa next week. It seems, talking with Andrew and Kyle, top 2 finishers in this one, that the pitch strategy amongst those two was kind of the big difference, as they kind of splintered off on what was an agreed upon pitch strategy for those two. How did that play into your decision? Because late in this one, Cameron Fronty was really struggling. That's why he almost closed in on him.
Yeah, honestly, I was just going to wait and see what they did. And once I got the notification that Andrew was pitting, I was thinking about ducking in with him, same lap. But I figured, I'd stay out, lead a lap. Still had a ways to go. The car felt pretty good. Honestly, I hadn't burned anything off too badly. So I thought I'd stay out there at least for another lap or two, and made my pit stop after that.
Obviously, entering this race third in the championship, just a little bit ahead of Daniel Epperhart, who doesn't get a result really in this one. Way down at the bottom, no Nick Hulslander, but still a win for Andrews. So it's going to be increasingly more difficult to catch him. And I guess so much can happen still in 6 weeks when we're only 4 weeks in. But this will put you second in the championship. As we head into Iowa next week, how do you assess how things have been off of the get-go?
Yeah, pretty good. Like I said last week, is my first experience in this league, and starting to get to know people, and of course getting to know them on the track as well, and figuring out who's fast. Obviously, few fast guys in here, so that makes it really fun. I get to learn, from those that are definitely quicker than me. So it looks like there'll be a few guys to beat this season, and hopefully that'll carry over into the full throttle next season.
Maintain the spot as the highest running driver in the championship, still without a checkered flag this season. Looking forward to see if Iowa could be that breakthrough one for you. We'll let you jet out of here. I know it was a long and exhausted one, keeping you busy on the road course this evening. But before we let you go, anybody you want to say hi to?
I just run as an independent, just myself. Try to do this and fit these things in as life happens, which kind of makes it interesting. But definitely want to thank everybody for watching. Happy holidays out there, and to you, Evan. Appreciate what you do. Makes watching these races a lot of fun.
Appreciate you being a part of this RSR competition. Kyle, thanks for chatting, and again, congratulations on a good finish. Enjoy the first bit of the holiday break here, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers. Thank you. Have a good one.
P3 finisher in this one from Mid-Ohio. And a big thanks to all of our top finishers for chatting with us post-race. For Andrew Freenach, who's in victory lane tonight, Kyle Kammer, and for Kyle Trudell. Your top 3 after this one. Again, it'll be a Freenach and Trudell 1-2 in the championship. A big gap in between them, albeit. But those are the top 2 cars as we head to Iowa. And the drivers kind of set it up at a T for us, Justin, because they talked a lot about it. First time with these new tires outright this evening. But we'll get our first, I guess, real look at them, if you will, on an oval as we head to Iowa. And that's a fun racetrack regardless. So it'll be certainly exciting as we head to that one.
It was talked about a bit by some of the drivers. Multiple lines able to be driven at Iowa. You can run to the top line potentially and try and defend positions there. A lot of drivers in the most recent weeks have been starting to move towards the bottom specifically in both 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And mind you too, You can indeed cook the front tires if you push too hard and burn that right front tire up. It's going to get interesting to see not only who's got the best speed on the short tracks, but as well at Iowa, who's able to maintain their tires enough to get long run speed, and who falls off a cliff.
And we look forward to catching that one the next time out, but that is it for us here tonight. That'll put it in the book for round number 4. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with us by going online to www.livesimracing.com and by engaging with us on social media. You can give us a like at facebook.com/LSRTV official and by following us on Twitter at LSRTV to stay in the loop. But until next time, on behalf of our entire team at LSRTV, the folks behind the scenes, and for your broadcast crew tonight, for our producer downstairs, Randy Janeth, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in. Wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, and congratulate Andrew Fridaj as your race winner. We're back, though, before we turn to the next calendar year, Monday, December 30th. One more time out from Iowa. That race and every race of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series can be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Ohio, where it's Ferdinand 3 in a row.